The weekend and the day has finally come where Superman was released into theaters, and it is getting the reception that it needs. It truly deserves. What a great film that movie is. I saw it last Thursday on July 10th, and man, I just love that film to death. I can't wait to see it again. And I am a big Superman fan. I wear Superman shirts all the time, if you know me, and have a Secrets Lab Superman chair. And I grew up watching like the Justice League, the Superman animated series, and even the Crypto the Superdog cartoon that everyone may have skipped or doesn't really talk about anymore. But I remember growing up with that cartoon. And growing older, Superman has just become more important to me just because he's that symbol of hope that the world really needs. I feel like the world is very divided recently, where I won't get into politics or anything like that, but I feel like the world has a lot of hate in it right now, and it's just such a feel good film, and just having that sense of hope and being kind to others is what we truly need. Now, I'm thinking about putting a whole different video on my take on the Superman movie if you guys want to see that, but mainly I am posting more video game related content. And after seeing the Superman film, really gives me hope for a Superman video game. For years, Superman has been treated either as, I've heard, boring or dull, where he's too powerful, he's too much of a goody two shoes, and he's just a boring character. So that's resulted in creating the evil Superman storylines, especially in video games, where you have the Injustice series by NetherRealm, where I love that series to death as its own kind of Elseworld tale. But that's really the only big popularity we've really gotten with Superman in the video game kind of era. Uh, Man, we haven't seen like a really good video game from Superman since like I can't even remember. I remember he got a really bad Nintendo 64 game that was absolutely terrible, and I don't know if there's really been that good of representation. Please correct me in the comments below. But really, the NetherRealm game Injustice showed him as evil, as wanting to take over, of course, after Joker kills Lois Lane and his unborn son, and kind of takes off that way. And that's constantly been represented in even Zack Snyder's films, where his plan was to go to Injustice, where if you've seen those movies, he was going to get mind controlled by Darkseid and have that whole storyline. And I wasn't really liking where they were going with that, knowing that he should be the symbol of hope. But so I'm actually kind of glad that James Gunn took over. But if you guys take a look at the recent reviews of the Superman film, high positive ratings, where I think critics are at 85%, and I think right now users are at 95 or 96 on Rotten Tomatoes. And recently, at the time of filming this video, is they're predicting an opening of 127 million opening box office, and that's like the highest we've seen in a very long time for a DC project. And so it's showing that Superman still has its fans and people are still interested. And it's the Superman character that they want to see, not the evil Superman. And people aren't saying it's boring. This movie was able to take Superman into a positive light and show that he is humanity and he's good and hopeful. And you can make him interesting. Now, there's some things in the movie that they do take a turn with that kind of make it a little more interesting that I don't agree with, but you're not going to make every fan happy, but still a great film. But it shows that the people have interest in Superman. Now, with James Gunn taking over the whole DC universe, I believe once he announced his whole phase one of the DCU, labeling it Gods and Monsters, he explained he was going to do like tie-in cartoons that are all part of the universe, the movies, and he also talked about taking over the video game department and having some video games correlate with the DC universe. If that is still true, I hope so. I feel like that's a little bit too ambitious of everything in the DC universe. But who knows? They could make it work. Now, with this high reception of Superman and Warner Brothers kind of misstepping with the DC video games, like the last one was Suicide Squad, where that game was so atrocious. Where, oh man, what a disappointment of a video game that was. Let's just say that. And they really, really messed up the Superman character, where they have fake gold kryptonite, and that's how they killed him. And all the other Justice League members have like this cool monologue before they die, and it's Superman just flops to the ground, doesn't say a single word, and they're like, "Hey, that's that," and they move on. Awful representation. But with this reception, I think they could really do a good Superman game at this point. Minor spoilers if you haven't seen the film yet. I keyword on minor because it's literally the very first thing that happens in the film. So just keep that in mind. So the very first thing that happens is they do a little text scroll, kind of like Star Wars, where they kind of explain a few things. Where Superman's already been Superman for the past 3 years, and he's already going around, and there's already metahumans for the past like 3 centuries, right? I feel like what they could do is get a Superman game during those 3 years, where maybe it's not like a retelling of an origin story, because even James Gunn said it. I don't think we really need another origin story for Superman. The guy's been around since the 1930s. I think everyone knows Superman's origin story. But they could do like a year or two after he's Superman and have a really cool story where he's learning his powers or trying to get like into the groove of doing the right thing and kind of building that personality, right? And show what happened during that time. And I know that they came out with a companion book for this movie that kind of explains a few things, and they actually had Metallo in there, and they had the Justice Gang help him out and do all of this. I think they could do something like that, where he could fight Metallo, and that could be like his first introduction to like kryptonite, and they can show like how he got into the Daily Planet, and that's like the story of meeting like Lois Lane and everything in there, and just build off it. Now, another route they could do is do like a little in-between story where, let's say, they're doing this film, they have the new Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow film coming out in 2026, or something like that, where they could do a companion game where you have Supergirl and Superman team up, and they can have this adventure together either on Earth and fight this threat, or they go off into space and find other threat, and you can go from planet to planet and see where things go in like a big space adventure. And I feel like there's a lot of things they can do with both of those ideas, where on Earth you could deal with the big threat of Parasite, when Parasite is just sucking up all the energy, and like from like Superman, where Superman's depowered and has to figure out a way to fight Parasite. Or they can bring like Livewire into the mix, or there's just so many range of heroes. Injustice 2 did bring in Brainiac. You could bring in Brainiac, but honestly, I think Brainiac's going to be the next villain possibly in the DCU, so I think they may hold him back. I just feel like there's an opportunity for a Superman game now more than ever, because he's finally in that spotlight of the general public again. I think it's a really good opportunity to get the video game Warner Brothers side back into things, and try to get that spark going. Have some kind of tie-in project with it. That's just my quick rambling thoughts about my hope for a Superman game. It probably won't happen, but I'm hoping the drive and the numbers that the Superman film is giving can bring some spark of hope into the possibility of a Superman video game, where instead of me having to download a Spider-Man 2 mod just to be Superman flying around like New York City, I want to have an actual Superman game where I can fly around Metropolis and use all of his powers and actually have a good storyline taken from the comic books Like, you could even do a Superman versus the Elite. If they just do an adaptation of that storyline into a game, that would be fantastic. I think that would be a solid choice because that comic and even the movie itself is a great representation of who Superman is and how he really wants to hold back and be human and not use violence all the time. I think that would be a great opportunity as well. There's so many storylines that the general public doesn't know about with All-Star Superman, Secret Origin, For All Seasons. Any of those comic books can really have a good impact on a video game. And I know like there's a lot of media where like movies take 2 to 3 years to make. TV shows have a whole different budget and a smaller budget where you've seen Superman on the smaller screen, or you can even go with the cartoon route where they have been doing with like the past Superman stories, like Superman versus the Elite. But I think it's time now that Superman finally gets his own video game and gets that opportunity. I mean, they could even do something where it's like Batman Arkham Knight for like the hand-to-hand combat stuff, possibly. Just more on a grander scale where some combos will like introduce his powers where you have all of the like equipment from Batman. Instead of the equipment, you could have like combos into like Superman's powers, like his freeze breath, laser eyes, flying, do anything like that. I think that would be awesome. But anyways, that's my rambling thoughts about a possible Superman game. Please let me know down in the comments if you guys think this is a good idea, bad idea, or even some of your pitches of what you think a good Superman game could look like. I'd be more than happy to read and try to imagine what you guys come up with. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk with you guys in the next one.